Hello and welcome to MtM Vegas. $1 million jackpots. Part of City Center has now been sold off for a strip mall. The Pinball Hall of Fame is here and the numbers are in for March. It was a very good month. All of that's coming up, plus the preview of my trips to Lake Tahoe and Reno. So much to cover. If you like this video, if you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and leave a comment. We'd love to discuss these stories with you. Thanks so much for watching. Let's hit it. So Mark, I'm up here in Lake Tahoe. If I could open this and it wouldn't blow out my image, I would be able to show you the entire lake behind me, but I can't do that. I tried to make it work and the lighting just didn't work. But I'm up here in Reno, been filming some videos. It's been a fun time. Reno it's interesting. It's interesting right now. Pretty quiet at some of the casinos on Virginia Street. I'm gonna head back there and check out some other stuff today, but it's been fun.
Yeah, I know you shared some pictures of the lake at the Hyatt that you're at for Lake Tahoe, and it looks beautiful. And I know that's a favorite property among many Hyatt loyalists. And the beach scene always looks pretty cool there, and casinos there, and then your short drive from Reno. So if you want to check that out, so that's always been a trip on my bucket list to hit Reno for a couple days, then make my way down to Tahoe and check that out for a few days. So I'm jealous. Let's just say.
This is a beautiful time of year to do it too because it's still kind of cool enough. It's nice to be outside and you get that nice little chill, but it's not so cold where it's snowy. Although coming through Donner Pass from California, I hit snow, and then as I arrived in Reno, I hit hail. But as far as videos coming, I did tons of walking around Reno. Also stayed at Circus Circus, the other Circus Circus, the one that nobody knows about, the one that's owned by Caesars Entertainment, and
the one that doesn't give you hepatitis when you stay there.
Actually, I mean, the rooms were renovated a couple years ago. Surprisingly nice. I found out that their system isn't tied in completely with Caesars yet because these were El Dorado properties before the merger. And so when I tried to book online, it was trying to charge me, a rack rate or whatever. And it said, call to see if you have any offers. So I called and they gave me a free room, which if you've watched the show, I don't really get comps at Caesars very often anymore. So I got a free room at Circus Circus, upgraded to a suite there as well for the one night. No resort fee or anything with my diamond, so it was definitely a win.
Well, it wasn't the first room you got was the old, not remodeled rooms, and it wasn't in the best shape, and then they moved you to the other room?
No, I had looked ahead of time. So when I checked in, he said we have upgraded you to a spa suite. So it was still a suite, and I had noticed from their website the spa suites they looked a little older. So I asked him. I said, "Is that room renovated?" He said, "No, it's in the older section." And I said, "Can I please get a renovated room?" And then he had to ask, although the suite that they had originally put me in was more money on their website than the one I got moved to. So I don't know, but very friendly people there. It worked out really well.
I
I didn't have to go.
The Hyatt you had to switch around because the room was not the greatest, right?
Yeah, at the Hyatt there was some weird stuff happening there, but I ended up in this room that had no view, and I went back and asked, and then they put me in a lakeside cottage, which is like an $800 a night room right by Lake Tahoe. So no complaints there. Beautiful cottage, a beautiful area. Got to watch the sunset, fly the drone over Lake Tahoe a little bit. So hopefully I'll have some drone footage and some other cool things to share. But yeah, very relaxing place up here. I'm a little bit at peace, but then I still have that horrid drive home through Nevada, which I am not looking forward to. Not that there's anything wrong with Nevada, it's just a little bit of a boring drive between this area and Vegas.
Are there any direct flights from Vegas to Reno? Are those cheaper, or is there nothing direct if you wanted to do that?
Well, Southwest has always had a ton of directs. I don't know what the situation is now with the scheduling. There's definitely a lot of direct flights. Carson City is not far from here, the capital, so there's always a lot of people flying back and forth. You can definitely fly if you're up for that. Of course, I wanted to hit the road. I took the Tesla, went down to Southern California, drove up. It's been fun, good to kind of get out on the road and see things. But at the meantime, Vegas is sort of hopping. I mean, we're going to talk a lot about how it's opening up even more, some of the numbers, because people wanted us to dive into that. So let's get into
clubs.
The show. Well, let's start by talking about big wins. Like this last weekend, we had a $2 million winner at Cosmo, I think on Wheel of Fortune slots. I believe the person put $40 in. And then at South Point, $10 million on Megabucks. So not only are people coming back, but big jackpots happening.
Yeah, and I think the South Point one was a $5, like they put $5 in the machine or a $5 bet, something like that. Very low, like probably just one of those big machines you see when you're walking out and everybody throws in like a dollar or two when they're, oh, I'll just do one and hits, it's just crazy. And the funny thing is, I've talked to some people that have won bigger, not this type of jackpot. My wife did have a patient once that hit a $3 million jackpot, so that was kind of unique. But the $20,000 to $30,000 range, and they actually say it's like the worst thing that ever happened to them. And you're thinking, okay, for the bigger $1 million, maybe that's because people are coming out of the woodwork asking for money now. But on the 20 to 30K, it's because it gives you this image in your brain that you can do this again. So you end up going back and you end up gambling even more, thinking that, oh, I did it once, I definitely can do it again. So that's kind of interesting, something to be aware of. If you do, whenever you get a big win, maybe take a little break, because your endorphins kick in and you think, you know what, this is something I can repeat, and probably not likely.
Yeah, call that chasing the win. Yeah, I mean, the other thing to kind of keep in mind if you're ever playing these progressive machines is always do the max bet so you qualify for the progressive. We see all the time where people hit the Wheel of Fortune, but they have one coin in, or hit Megabucks. Just don't play those machines if you want to bet one thing, or not bet the maximum, because there's really no point. And if you talk about, being upset, Mark, how upset would you be if you hit like Megabucks with $1 in, instead of the full thing?
Yeah. I was upset. My buddy, we were playing blackjack once, and there was some random one of those, like, if you get four of dime, everybody has four of diamonds, like you have two and the dealer has something like that. You win 1,000 to 1, and my buddy wasn't betting it, and he hit it. And I was like, dude, that's $5,000 you would have had right there. So I got mad about that. I couldn't even imagine, and that wasn't even me. And I couldn't even imagine what it'd be if it was, a $10 million jackpot that I missed out on because I bet $1 instead of $5 or whatever. So yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's get into the news, because MGM has sold a piece of property on the Strip that a lot of people have probably seen. When City Center was built back, over a decade ago, there was another tower as part of the development, Harmon Tower, sitting right on the corner of Harmon and Las Vegas Boulevard. It had construction defects from the beginning, so it never opened. If you've ever seen it, it was like this blue glass kind of tower, really pretty looking building. Since then, it's just been this empty lot. And MGM decided not to develop it. They sold it to a developer to build a mall for $80 million for a little over 2 acres. And if you're familiar with the Harmon Corner, just kind of catty corner to that, which is a mall very similar next to Planet Hollywood with the big 2-story Walgreens, that's what's going in here. A 2-story CVS, more retail. I don't know why MGM wouldn't develop it themselves, keep it up there, but it does look a little nicer than Harmon Corner. What do you think?
Yeah, and I've walked by it a ton of times. When you're walking in between the casinos, you walk like right past it, and it has been kind of an eyesore. It just looks like this pit of despair sitting there right on the Strip. So it is. I mean, 80 million seems like a really big price tag for such a small plot of land, but that's the Vegas Strip for you. It's a great location in between, a very popular area with the city center all around. I mean, the stores look nice from the renderings, but it pretty much looks like, something that we've seen other places, or, around the Strip. CVS, the other CVS isn't that far away. So I don't know. I don't get it. Yeah, I would have thought MGM would have put some money into it. It's right next to Crystals, which is, a shopping mall of its sort, high end stuff. So maybe this will be more lower end, so that you get a little bit of both worlds. But it's kind of a weird place to put more shopping.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have some good restaurants. It's interesting because Crystals is owned by Simon Property Group, so it's not owned by MGM or City Center. And it's also really close to Cosmo, because it's right on that bridge coming from Cosmo to City Center. That's right there once you cross over. It's definitely, I'm sure, going to be popular. The Walgreens across the street's popular, so no doubt it's going to take some business away from that. I think that Walgreens is one of the busiest in the entire country, the one at Harmon Corner. And it seems like this is going to be like that. The other thing we'll probably get, or we are going to get, is another giant billboard like we have at Harmon Corner on the top of the building. So it's going to be more like Times Square again. That's what's happening in Vegas. More screens everywhere, radiation coming from them. All right, so let's dive into the numbers now, because we got some gaming numbers, we got some other numbers for March, and it's really good. But the one number that sort of stood out was Nevada revenue, gaming revenue hit over $1 billion for the first time in quite a while. as the Strip, all of Nevada really coming back in some ways not. But let's start with those gaming revenue numbers. So overall, there was a 354% increase over March 2020. Of course, Vegas wasn't completely open in March 2020. Over $500 million in revenue just on the Strip. Big increases in penny slots, table games, craps, sports betting. So pretty much across the board, you're seeing a healthy recovery. And that's really good news. We'll talk about the visitor numbers in just a minute. But what did you think about these gaming numbers?
It's not surprising to see it up, and when you're looking at busy months for betting and people coming to Vegas, March is one of the busiest because of March Madness. So a billion's a big number, but when you look at history, maybe not so big, but it sounds big. So I think definitely people coming into town for March Madness, betting on the basketball games, playing the table games and slots while they're there. Weather's getting nicer, driving in from California and stuff. It's not surprising to see it up. Tough to compare it to the previous year because it was only open for, a week or so last year before they completely shut down. So I wouldn't look at that so much as a positive. It's just expected anything would be up. But to see it surpass $1 billion is good. And I think it's going to continue to track that way. I expect, throughout the summer for it to be above that number. And then maybe see a dip starting in the fall would be my guess.
And when it comes to sports betting, there's some interesting numbers. Of course, Vegas probably hurting overall with sports betting as apps become more widespread and more states legalize sports betting. Nevada's still number 2, though, behind New Jersey now, which is number 1, not a surprise. Pennsylvania number 3, Michigan number 4, and then Indiana number 5. So Vegas, or Nevada in general, is still hanging on when it comes to sports betting. And I just want to say, Mark Meltzer on Play Nevada did a great breakdown. I'll put a link in the description of all the numbers when it comes to the gaming revenue and stuff. Definitely worth checking out. And now let's talk about the Vegas visitor stats. We used to do that more often on the channel, but I feel like this is a good time to jump back in, and we will do that occasionally, not every single month, because it gets a little bit redundant. But in March, because there was a big spike, it's worth sort of looking at. Over 2.2 million people visited in March, according to the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Also, if you look at the airport, they said that they had almost 1 million more passengers in March compared to February. And one interesting thing that stood out, the occupancy was only 55% compared to about 91% 2 years ago in 2019 during the same month. So still a little ways to go as far as filling the rooms because there's no conventions. But overall, some very positive signs and huge explosion from what we were seeing just a couple months ago.
Yeah, and I would imagine on the weekends, it's, you're pushing up towards the numbers in the past. It's just during the week, you're not having that convention crowd in here to fill up the hotels. So the Tuesday to Thursday maybe is really dragging down the overall percentage of room rates, would be my guess. That's just because it does seem on the weekends it's busy. The hotels are full. You're seeing people come in from all over, but you're just not getting that business traveler that's there during the week to prop it up.
Yeah, 145,000 rooms, give or take, and that's a lot of rooms to fill up when you don't have the conventions. And we've said it before, that is their business model. The reason there are so many rooms is partly for tourism, but also because of the conventions. They've built all these massive convention centers everywhere. Another number to look at is RevPAR, revenue per available room. I know that we had been talking about this before. It was $55 March 2021, and that's almost a 55% drop. So it was almost over double what that was 2 years ago. So that's just another sign. A lot of these rooms are sitting empty, and they're not able to monetize them. But it's not bad news overall because this is a huge increase over what we've been seeing through COVID. And one would expect that it's going to continue to happen, and these numbers will continue to get better. And of course, we know World of Concrete will be the first major convention coming back to the convention center. And we expect through the rest of this year and into next year, all of the major conventions to come back. I know CES did confirm this week that they will be back. Not that that was something that we didn't expect, but they definitely would be back in January. And I think you'll see all of these numbers sort of start ticking up even more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a little bit surprising when you see these numbers because the prices seem to be not, they're going up too. Like I've noticed, I was looking for a trip in September, and the prices are very high for hotels. So I wonder if they're kind of playing that game where they're trying to figure out where the price point is that, do we make it too cheap that we fill it up, but we're losing money on the, paying people to clean. We don't have the staff. And, where's that break even point where we charge enough that it's profitable, even if we don't fill the rooms, versus just trying to get people in there? Because I do feel like, and we've talked about this in the past, a lot of the people coming to Vegas aren't the traditional Vegas clientele where they're not gambling. They don't have a big, budget to spend. Like if you're coming for a convention, your business is or work is paying for your dinners and stuff. So it's a lot more people just kind of like hanging out, enjoying the vibe of the place versus going there to spend money on food, drinks, gambling stuff. So they're probably trying to price it right that they don't lose money on the rooms because they know they're not going to make it up inside the casino or the restaurants.
Yeah, one other thing to keep in mind if you're searching for trips that are down the line is that I think they are pricing things higher with the anticipation that demand will be higher. And I would not be surprised if you see last minute bookings deeper or being able to find deals last minute. And so just keep an eye on your reservations if you're booking for September. Maybe lock something in, but keep a close eye on room rates because as it gets closer and they have a better idea of how they're selling their rooms, you may be able to do better. The hotels aren't a loss leader anymore. They have to make money. The restaurants have to make money. That's the Vegas that we live in today, not like 40 years ago when they give you a 99-cent shrimp cocktail and hope to make it up at the tables. That just doesn't happen anymore. One other thing that's going to help the casinos rebound is that we are moving to 80% capacity on May 1st with 3 feet distancing. We've talked before that the goal is to get to 100% capacity in June. And I believe once we get to 60% vaccinated, that will be allowed. So the time frame is maybe a little fluid there, but 80% capacity May 1st, 3-foot distancing, and the end of that coming pretty soon after that. Masks are still going to stick around for a while, but even with masks, as long as all the venues can open, the people can be back in. Maybe that's controversial or not, but it should help Vegas get back to being Vegas.
Yeah, I think that will help in the, in the restaurants and stuff like that. Not so much on the casino floor because they aren't really enforcing any 6 feet or social distancing right now. You're sitting at a table, you have 3 or 4 people at a table. So maybe they cram another seat in there or whatever, but it's already, set up to work that way anyway. But you will see it in the restaurants where they're able to add more tables and chairs back in, which will bring in more guests, people not waiting in line, open up more reservations, stuff like that. And then if shows, you can fit more people in the show, then you're going to make a ton more money versus the capacity limitations they're at right now. So I think that's where you'll see the uptick versus not so much on the gambling floor, but in everything else. And that's where Vegas makes their money these days. So I think that'll be good.
And there's so many announcements about shows reopening. So if your favorite show is something you're interested in, take a look. We saw a date I know for Blue Man Group this week, and we saw Cirque we talked about last week. We'll continue to see more shows. I know even big events like Dave Chappelle is doing a couple of events here coming up. Bruno Mars has announced dates for his residency coming back. So all of this sort of news is going to be coming fast and furious. And the other big news I know people have been waiting for, May 1st, strip clubs are allowed to reopen with some interesting rules. And yeah, so basically, Mark, what is going to be the rules for strippers and how this is going to work?
So I guess if they've been vaccinated, at least gotten their first shot more than 14 days ago, so 14 days or more, they can get within the 3 feet, so they can get closer than 3 feet from the patrons. If they don't have a shot, I don't know if they're just not going to be able to work or they're going to be only stage dancers or how that's going to play out. They will be wearing masks, and they say it will be optional for patrons, but it is the rule for anything indoors for Nevada. So I don't see how that's optional unless, those rules change. So maybe they're setting it up that if the rules where it's not enforced everywhere indoors, they're still going to require it of the dancers, but not maybe of the patrons. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but I don't know. Maybe a masked dancer adds a little sexiness to it. What do you think?
It could. Definitely some interesting vibes. I don't know, not my favorite places to go, especially not in Las Vegas. But the other thing that's opening is brothels on May 1st. And there's a whole world. I have no idea how that's going to work. Certainly, that brings a whole different interaction between guests and the workers. So hopefully they've thought that out. Although brothels tend to be in more rural areas, which a lot of these rural areas are able to go to 100% May 1st. So Clark County is going to 80%. Interesting enough, Reno or Washoe County didn't get their plan in time. They're still going to be at 50% until they get their plan to a place where the Gaming Control Board likes it. So every county is a little bit different, but overall, by the start of the summer, everything's going to be open. Vegas is going to be Vegas. Nevada is going to be Nevada. And that's going to be that. The only question mark is masks. And I've predicted that I think they'll stick around a little bit longer. That still remains to be seen. I don't know that we have any news either way, but yeah, I mean, all the fun stuff's coming back. All the stuff that people complained about saying, yeah, well, Vegas during COVID is interesting. It's different, but it's not Vegas. I think that you'll be able to get whatever experience you want. Whatever makes Vegas Vegas for you will be back by June.
Yeah, including boobies.
And speaking of boobies, EDC got postponed. We had talked about the fact that they were supposed to have it in May, and that they said they got approval and they didn't. And then they made a lot of people upset by postponing it to later in the year. And essentially they said that they weren't able to guarantee that Clark County would be at 60% vaccinations in order to allow them to have the event at 100% capacity. And so they made that last minute choice to cancel. And our final story this week is the Pinball Museum has finally opened on the South Las Vegas Strip. It's not too far from Mandalay Bay, and I think they have over 25,000 square feet of pinball machines. I'm hoping to get over there in the next few days. I think it opened April 15th, if I'm correct. So we're a little bit late on the news, but it's a much better location than it was. This place does operate as a nonprofit, which I've said many times I don't agree with because it is a business, but they do preserve a lot of old machines. They don't care whether a machine makes money, which is an interesting part of their nonprofit strategy. So even machines that are like historically relevant, if people don't play them, they still keep them, they maintain them. But I'm really excited to see what 25,000 square feet of their collection is. And I think it's great that they're on the Strip now. I think they'll draw in a lot more tourists compared to that strip mall location on, Tropicana that they had before.
Yeah, because I know they had a lot of machines that they weren't able to display at the old location, and they crammed everything they could into there. So it'll be interesting to see what new machines are rolling out, and I'm sure they're going to keep adding to the collection and updating and everything. So I can't wait to check it out. Hopefully the 25-cent popcorn machines made the transition over, because that was my favorite part of the thing. But I definitely am going to check it out. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to see the new digs.
And hopefully they put in some good air conditioners, because that was the one thing about that old location in the summer with all of those machines in there. It got brutally hot, and there was no way for them to cool down the building to a point where it was comfortable. So hopefully, I'm assuming with new construction, they'll have that sort of figured out, and it'll be a much more comfortable place to go and hang around. I know for me, like in the summer, the few times I was there, I'd play for a few minutes and just want to get out of there. They used to have a lot of their collection on display at Riviera, so hopefully a lot of that stuff comes back, and yeah, I can't wait. I'll be heading down there. So anything else to add about your September trip before we sign off?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm booked for the first night. We're going to stay at Circa, so I get to check out those rooms. I booked a corner suite because it was like $30 more than the standard room. So I'm looking forward to it. My wife's coming along, so it'll be her first time checking it out. So hopefully she likes it as much as I do. And then I'm moving down to the Waldorf, first time staying there. So it'll actually be my first time staying in a non-casino property in Vegas. So we're going to stay there a couple nights, used Hilton free night certs, because as I said, the prices were very high, like in the $300, $400, $500 range a night. So I used some certificates, so it's going to cost me $0, which is pretty awesome. And I will say, Sean will put it in the show notes. Benji, who writes for Miles to Memories, has an article of all the different options in Vegas using Hilton points, how to use Hilton points, how to get Hilton points, stuff like that. So if you aren't a big gambler, but you still want to go to Vegas for free, this will give you some tips and tricks, some ways to figure it out. So check that out if you're interested in the show notes. There'll be a link to the article.
Yeah, as we talked about last week, Hilton is stacked here in Vegas, and I am excited for you. That particular weekend, we have an event on the Strip. Both of us do a common event with a friend, and I was looking for a room, and the prices are so crazy that I might just have to stay at home. But I'm hoping that prices fall down a little bit. But Waldorf's a beautiful property. I'm glad you're finally getting to stay at Circa. And that's going to do it for this week's MtM Vegas. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, smash the thumbs up button, and more importantly, comment. Let us know what you think about all of these stories. We love to discuss Vegas, and we love to discuss everything in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
See you guys next week.